It is very exciting today to return to the sport of luge. A couple of months ago, we spoke with Hannah Campbell-Pegg about her time at the Olympics, and she talked a little bit about another Australian, a two-time Olympian, competed in Sochi and in Pyeongchang, and is on the road to go to his third Olympic Games in Beijing, a man by the name of Mr. Alex Filazzo. And we're here today to talk to him about his time in luge and everything luge related, because it's a great sport and Australians need to learn more about it. Alex, welcome to Off the Podium. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much, Ben. Yeah, it's good to be here.
It's a sport which I am glued to. Every 4 years, when I am watching the Olympics, it's always one of these ones that I am straight to watch. I love it. I think this is a sport that as Australians we need to watch more outside of the Olympics. We should be watching World Cups. We should be just watching luge 24/7 basically, because this is one of the best sports, most entertaining sports. And can you even describe what it is like to be involved in luge, Alex, and experience what I'm excited just watching on a couch, let alone being on a sled?
It's truly incredible. There's a lot to it. Like obviously the learning aspect of figuring out how to slide to begin with, and then once you got the hang of it, there's so many small things to work on, and it's a sport of mistakes more than a sport of getting things right. You gotta really weed out the mistakes to have the perfect run. Once you make a mistake, there's no finding that time back in any way. So it's a sport of perfection, but at the end of the day, it's the sport of mistakes. So
I love that explanation for it, because one thing that I really learnt from our chat with Hannah was just the level of subtlety and skill that is needed, because she talked a lot about how Roy and HG famously back in Salt Lake basically made it look like it's a sport where you just jump on, lay down, and that's it. But obviously there's a whole lot more to it. And I kind of love that explanation about the sport of mistakes, because there's, few sports where I think really you would kind of base it on that aspect of it. But it's interesting to hear it put that way.
yeah, it's just about going into each run, we're trying to minimize as many mistakes on the way down. And right now is a great example. I'm learning the new track in China at the moment, and no one's been here before. So all we have to work on is mistakes. So you have your 3 runs a day, you drill those mistakes into your head, you go to sleep at night, and then you wake up the next day and hope that your brain has figured out how to fix those mistakes in a way, and that's pretty much the circle I'm on at the moment.
And so, as you said, you're in China right now. So this is the Beijing track that you hope to be sort of competing at the Olympics. And is it sort of a case now where there's a lot of people right now there testing it out, kind of checking it out? Or are you sort of in a unique position where you're able to do that at the moment?
No, so the entire luge community flew over from Frankfurt on a charter flight, and we've been here for 5 days now, testing out the new track and just getting to know it as best we can before the Olympics in February. We have 3 weeks here. The last week is a international race. It's the first World Cup of our season, so it's nice to have the first race of the year in China and then the last race of the year at the Olympics also in China. So
Kind of nice bookends there. What are the initial impressions like of the track? Kind of, is it something that's suited to your style, Alex? Are you enjoying it?
I've had 12 runs so far. I'm really enjoying it. It's completely different to any other track in the world, mainly in the way that the profiles are built so open. So on most luge tracks, the corners come up on such a angle that you get planted into your sled. Like the G-force pushes you into the sled and you can feel the pressure around curves. But this track is, the corners aren't so steep. So it's hard to feel where the steers are in the corners. So yeah, there's not much pressure to work against. So learning the track has been a bit more difficult if you're not a slider that usually relies on feelings on the way down. But, it's super long, and I had my first clean run today without a skid and any walls. And that's saying a lot, because everyone is just eating shit at the moment. So it's going well. I've really, the first day just it blew everyone away. It just felt completely different. We're like, oh my God, what is going on? You're like, I can't figure this out. And then, we just slowly piece it together from the top. Okay, we need to do this. We need to steer against the pressures to actually get the feeling into the sled rather than, just try to lay back and absorb the pressures going into curves. We found that you actually have to steer to feel the pressures, which is an interesting way of sliding, but it's becoming to feel more normal the more we do it.
Which I can imagine that going into something like that, it kind of creates a level playing field, I can imagine, because again, you're all sort of trying it out for the first time. So you're all able to experience what you're saying there, from the best guys in the world to the newer guys in the world, that you're able to experience that and create that sort of more of an even playing field while you're getting to learn it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's pretty sweet in that sense that this is truly like, especially the first few runs, it just comes down to pure instinct sliding abilities and takes a lot away from, sled setup and experience on tracks. It's just how you're able to get it down the hill, without knowing because, you go over to Germany or Austria or, Russia, and the Russians and the locals know the track inside and out, and we're always playing catch up in those locations. But come to a new track, everyone's on the same playing field, and it's a lot of fun.
And it's also, I guess, going to a country where the sport isn't exactly a common sport. You're mentioning the European nations there where it's very big, but I can imagine Pyeongchang might have been a similar case, and now going to China where luge isn't exactly the household sport of that country. So I can imagine create something a little bit different. Whereas you're saying if it's in Germany, the Germans are maybe going to create a track that is maybe a little bit more suited to their riders.
Yeah, that's right. And luge is different in the way that it's quite a big learning curve, where like the Chinese athletes have had probably, close to 1,000 runs since the track has been built. And they still can't get it right because they don't have the years of experience that the rest of us have. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of years to get this sport, and it's so different, right? Like lying down on your back and steering with your feet and your hands and your shoulders, and it's just different to anything else. And it's so precise. Our steels are sharp, so every steer you make is going to point you in the direction that you steer it towards. Where compared to bobsled and skeleton, they have rounder steels, so they don't really grip into the ice as much. They can steer in pressures, but when they're on straightaways and when they are in pressures, they can't get under the steers as well as we can. And that's why I think the learning curve is so huge in luge.
I love your story about how you got into the sport, that essentially a friend suggested it to your mum, and then kind of the rest is history. How does that conversation go down? What are your mum and your friend talking about to all of a sudden go, hey, Alex, should try luge. Why doesn't he give it a crack?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing it went along the lines of, how's your son doing? What's he doing for sport at the moment? And my mum was probably like, he's bouncing off the walls. He can't sit still. He's he's doing as much sport as he can, and when he's not outside, on the soccer field or at the athletic track, he's jumping on, doing backflips on the trampoline and all other types of insane, adrenaline kind of junkie things. So, and then, she mentioned to mum that I reckon I got a sport that's good for him. And she was right,
Yeah.
I loved it from the beginning. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, was it always luge, or were there any sliding sports? Was skeleton, bobsled kind of there, or was it just luge all the way?
No, it was luge all the way. I didn't even know about pretty much any winter sports, to be honest, when I first started luge. I was only 15 at the time from North Queensland, Townsville. So, winter sports isn't huge there. And Yeah, I mean, all started in Townsville. Mum met Karen, and then Mum told me, and then we went to Sydney for a recruitment camp with probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 other people, and then they did some physical testing, push ups and med ball throws, and a bit of information, a PowerPoint presentation on a screen, and just gave us the rundown of what luge is all about. And then we rode down a hill on a sled with wheels, and that's just got the idea of how to really sled. And then the group went over to New Zealand, Naseby, New Zealand, and tried natural track for the first time. They have a small natural track over there. I think it's about 300 meters roughly, but that was a great experience. That was my first time overseas and first time like seeing snow and being cold. And I think that sliding natural track before artificial track really ingrains the steering mechanism on a sled, especially on ice, because the steers are natural. You don't have any banks to steer and no G-force to steer on. So yeah, I mean, that was a great place to start, I think. And then the group probably halved after that. And then about 6 months later, we went to Lake Placid, New York to try luge on an artificial track, and spent a week there sliding from a tourist start from, the 12th curve out of 21 or 19 curves in the Lake Placid track. Geez, I don't even know. I think it's 19. I think it's 19.
We'll go with 19, sure.
We'll go with 19. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I had a great time. I didn't hit a wall the entire way down, and I mean the entire week. So yeah, still loved it. And then from there, I was traveling each year for close to 6 months of the year over to Europe on learning all the tracks in Germany and Austria and Norway and Canada and America from then.
Wow. It's like when you say that you go to Sydney for this camp and they're showing you a PowerPoint, it just reminds me of that scene in Cool Runnings when John Candy's doing the whole, like, everybody come to the town hall. This is a bobsled. You're going to get hurt. Who wants to do it? Put your hand. Everyone's left. Basically, the room's empty. So it's incredible to think that, because I don't know if you know the answer to this, Alex, but I mean, are there any other Winter Olympians that have come from far north Queensland, or are you it? Like, are you the only one?
I don't know. That's a great question. I should know that. But
yeah, I feel like I should have some research to back that up too, because it's definitely not the part of the country that you would imagine that Winter Olympians are coming from. Is that part of Australia?
No. It's an odd one for sure.
Which is even when you say you saw snow for the first time when you go to New Zealand. Like, that's, you've not even seen snow before. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. But in another way, it's perfect. Living in Australia, technically I'm in perpetual winter, right? Spending winters in the northern hemisphere and then the winters in the southern hemisphere during the off season. But being in far north Queensland during the winter is probably the best place to be in Australia during the winters, to be honest. 100%. So it just worked out really well.
Yeah, which is, I keep trying to sell with Brisbane having the Olympics in 2032. It's technically a Winter Olympics for Australia because it is being held in July. So it's technically Australia's first ever Winter Olympics. So they could maybe throw in luge. I don't know, like sort of a weird version of it essentially there. You mentioned sort of all the other sports you were playing. Was there ever a dream as a kid to go to an Olympics? Was this something you'd sort of looked at when you were growing up?
No, it was never a dream to go to the Olympics. I mean, I loved watching it, but it never crossed my mind, or I never had the spark of, you hear a lot of athletes talk about, they saw an event and they got inspired and wanted to go to the Olympics. That never really crossed my mind. And I fell in love with the sport first, and then the Olympics came afterwards. And I think that's a healthier relationship with the Olympics and sport in general, to be honest.
It's that journey, though, too, that to start a sport at such a late age compared to what some people are starting sports at. I mean, we've just seen in Tokyo there were athletes winning gold medals at 13, and yet you're starting the sport at 15. But that progression, because you obviously end up in Sochi in 2014. Before then, you're at a Youth Olympics, the very first Winter Youth Olympics in 2012, which is very close to when you start. I mean, do you remember sort of what it's like to go to a Youth Olympics when you've barely been doing the sport, for less than 2 years at that point, and you're already at a Youth Olympic Games?
Yeah, that was overwhelming. It was. Going to the Youth Olympics was overwhelming, but I guess afterwards it put me in a better sense of what to expect going to Sochi in a way. But yeah, as you said, I was new to the sport. You know, only been to the track a few times beforehand, and um, learnt a lot from that experience. But yeah, it was awesome. You know, going to the first Youth Olympics in Austria too. I mean, Innsbruck, Austria is an amazing location. I love that place, and it holds close to my heart. And yeah, it's a good time.
It's we've spoken to many of our athlete guests on the show who've been to Youth Olympics, sort of that dress rehearsal aspect of it towards an Olympics, which I can imagine experiencing something like an Olympic Village and being able to see some other winter sports that, again, you maybe are not even familiar with until you're there and meet these athletes. I mean, does that help you towards Sochi? And like, as you were saying, kind of not just for the competitive side of things, but just everything else that an Olympics brings, preparing you for that?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'm still friends with a few athletes that I went to the Youth Olympics with, you know, and I've seen them at each Olympics since then, and that's like the only time I've seen them. So it's nice to have that connection going into my first Olympics. So, you know, at least knowing a few faces beforehand.
What's that then also like for schooling at that age and explaining to your teachers, hey, I've just got to go off for a little bit. I'm competing in luge. I mean, is that, again, like, I'm thinking Cool Runnings when they're going around asking for sponsorship and they're being laughed at because, you know, Tropical Nation going to, are they doing similar thing for luge? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. It was a blur. And I remember actually getting to finish. I started grade 12, I was 17. I got to stay late that year to graduate. So I can't remember what month we graduated in, but I stayed in Australia a few weeks later so I could graduate, and then I took off for the remainder of the season. And the seasons before that were only short, you know, just over Christmas break, like 2.5 month trips. So, yeah.
What was that process like then in the lead up to Sochi? And were you realistically thinking that Sochi was achievable given that you're so fresh in the sport? I mean, was it a case of the results were backing up that this could be a possibility, or was that kind of a bonus and maybe you were looking towards, say, 2018 and sure, if I can make it to 2014, that would just be a bonus towards that goal?
So 2014 was Sochi, and you know, obviously didn't have any expectations going into Sochi. I was having a lot of fun. I mean, I was 18 years old, still like picking up the sport pretty quickly and sliding well on a lot of tracks, but really just like enjoying the luge community and just having a lot of fun on and off the track. And you know, it was definitely a bonus going to the Olympics. I remember finding out and, you know, being super excited about, you know, I'm going to represent Australia at the Olympics, but it was never really a goal. But like the last season leading up to the Olympics for every luge athlete is just all about the Olympics. But, you know, in another sense, I've been lucky to really be the only athlete competing in luge for Australia for the last 8 years. So actually qualifying for the Olympics isn't too difficult for me. And that's a lot of weight off my shoulders, you know, going into the Olympics. But then in another sense, it makes it more difficult to slide under pressure because a lot of other bigger nations they have to race off against their teammates, you know, and that creates quite a competitive environment for, you know, every training session. And every single training session they have to be on their game to beat their teammates, where I've kind of had the opportunity to just go along at my own pace. And yeah.
And does that then also add where you try and feel that sense of teammate camaraderie when you're training, say in Latvia and the US, to kind of get immersed amongst other luge riders in a team, given that you are Australia's basically only luge athlete for the last 8 or so years, to feel that sense of camaraderie that you can have by having teammates in the same sport?
Yeah, it's been super important to me to have other teammates to compete against. And, the Americans for the last few seasons have been great for that. I'm sliding competitively against them, and just competing in all areas of, every single training session, in the gym, everywhere, and just having that banter along the way is really great for a goal setting. And yeah.
We spoke to Hannah a bit about, obviously her breaking that drought in 2006 of not really having an Australian luge Olympian for 12 years, I believe, at that point. You then broke another drought for the fact that you were Australia's only second ever male athlete since Roger White back in Lillehammer. Do you take that on board, sort of, when you go to Sochi, you get that achievement, and that it is a sport where, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can't imagine luge is maybe the least amount of athletes we've ever had in an Olympic sport. Okay, I know Nordic combined we've had one, so that's a limited sport. But I mean, does that sort of mean something to sort of think that you're in that really select group of Australians who have ever been to an Olympics in a sport like luge?
Yeah, it does. And being on circuit as well as the only Australian is quite special, especially now that I'm actually, quite competitive against a lot of athletes where, they used to see me as, the only Australian, but now they're like, oh, okay, this Aussie's, he's got some pace, and we better watch out for him, That's been really neat. So I'm super proud to be representing Australia with around these group of people. The luge community is fantastic, and they've been great to me, and I'm just trying to give it back to them as best I can as a competitive slider,
Did you go into Sochi setting yourself a goal? Was it a case of, I want to finish, top 30, set a time, or was it just kind of, again, racking up the experiences and just making the most of the opportunity?
I probably did have a goal going to Sochi, like a finishing a place goal. Can't remember what it was. It was probably, I don't know, top 30 or something. But everyone in the luge community, we have a decent sense of where everyone's going to be placed before the race begins, since all the training runs, you can see who's going to you can potentially pick the top 10 athletes before the Olympics starts. But yeah, sorry. What was the question?
Sort of the goal going into Sochi, was it like a place or things like that, sort of, that you were touching on there?
Yeah, I've made that mistake before, many times, of setting a place goal. But I think this season and this Olympics, my goal will be to be happy with my performance, not my result, at the end of the games. Because at the end of the day, the best I can do is put it down the hill straight and be proud of my performance. And if that puts me in a decent position at the end of the Olympics and at the end of each race, then that's a bonus, So.
And is it a case too, I can imagine, when you go to Sochi and sort of the eyes, going back to my point at the very beginning of the episode where I said Australians generally only watch luge every 4 years, but you might have a little boy, a little girl watching you on TV and going, wow, okay, this is achievable. And as an Australian, I can do this, and maybe start to recruit more people from the sport in luge. We talked to Hannah a little bit about that, but it's sort of something that maybe somebody is going to be seeing and can be joining you as sort of an Olympic luge athlete in the future.
That's something recently, as I've grown as an athlete and got a bit more mature and older, I've realized and starting to get really excited about the future of luge. I've accumulated so much experience from the last 8 years of sliding and so much knowledge sleds and how the sport is run and every single track and the right people to talk to. And I the end is it at the end of the tunnel I see a potential pretty awesome program. If I'm able to be a part of that, I'd be stoked, because I feel like I've trained my whole career to be an awesome coach for someone else, potentially in the future. So it is exciting to me, and I hope to be able to pass on that knowledge to some other Australian one day.
Yeah, well, it's sort of, Hannah spoke at length sort of about that sort of drive for the sport, and we've spoken to several bobsled athletes, and there seems to be kind of like a good pathway that's going on with bobsled at the moment. And I mean, obviously bobsled, luge, different sports, but I mean, obviously similarities in some aspect as well. So do we need to just stop sending these athletes to bobsled and give them to luge? Like, I mean, luge is better than bobsled, Alex, isn't it? Come on.
I I could not argue with that. I think luge is far better than bobsled, and I think if you could learn how to drive a luge sled, it would benefit any bobsled driver as well. So everyone should start on a luge sled and then move over to bobsled if they want to. But everyone should start on a luge sled.
How can you take us through sort of a general setup for a luge sled? Like, how much tinkering goes on between a run at a competition? Like, if you're on run number one, all of a sudden something feels a little bit off with the sled. There's some tinkering going along. Kind of like, how does that generally work with setup of a sled at an event?
Okay, so the sled is extremely technical. From it starts in the beginning. So a typical World Cup week, we have 5 training runs before a World Cup, before the race, right? And so the first 2 runs are made for practice. So you set up quite safe, you just make it down and learn the track and get a feel for the track. And then the next day you got 2 more runs, and therefore it's starting to tinker with a few things, maybe the angle of your steels into the ice, or the parallel of your steels. And then also like the suspension too, on certain tracks you need to change suspension. And so that's the second day. So you start tinkering with a few different setups. And then there's the Nations Cup, which is the qualification race before the World Cup race. And that's for also tinkering, but you also want to qualify, so you kind of want to be safe there too. So you're just working with what you've learned over the last few days. And then the World Cup race is weather dependent. So depending on the weather is how you would set up your angle into the ice. If it's frosty and a warm day, or if there's snow on the track, you want a high angle so you're not pushing too much snow. Where if it's cold and hard, you want a low angle but pretty hard steel. So, you still have grip, but only grip in straight lines and not sideways pressure. And then the parallel too. So you want fairly parallel steels from the front bridge to the back, and then a little bit towed in at the front. But and then for the race, you just kind of got to gauge it the best you can. So the first run you set up according to the weather, and then the second run you either run the same. Most of the time I'm running the same setup, but if something dramatic happens, like a weather change or my position, if I screw up the first run and there's nothing to lose, I'll go all or nothing on the second run, try to make up a few spots. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tinkering on a luge sled, and that's a huge part of it for me. I've really enjoyed learning my way around a sled, and I've learned something new just about every day. I've had the opportunity to throughout my career to talk and learn from a bunch of different coaches from different nations, and they all have a different idea of how a luge sled should be put together. So I've got all this knowledge from different areas, and I've starting to put it all together, taking the best bit from, the best parts from the Latvian sled, and the best parts from American sled, and the best parts from a Slovakian sled, so just put all that together, and hopefully I can find something that's pretty nice.
I love just that technical aspect of it, because again, going back to my point, how Roy and HG sold this as a lot of just a simple sport of laying there and going for a ride, but it's so
Yeah.
technical. And I love that from Hannah, where she just told us about the aspects of your body that you're steering and just everything along those lines. And what you're telling me there about that technical aspect of the sled, like it just adds such an extra layer when you're watching it. Which does that then when you come to double luge? I mean, is that then even more complicated because you got two guys there basically having to work it
Oh,
out?
oh yeah, that's a whole new beast, doubles luge. I don't know a thing about doubles luge sleds. I mean, the basics of it are quite similar to a single sled, but man, there's a lot going on in those double sleds. Yeah,
Yeah, which again, that's the disadvantage of being the only Australian. It's not like you can sort of have, like form
yeah.
an alliance with somebody to kind of do that. So come on, we need another Aussie out there so Alex can go on the doubles luge. Come Milan in 2026.
I had a go at a double sled once, probably in 2013. There was a Turkish team in Koningse from S3. They kept crashing out of Krasl. And the coach was like, all right, Alex, I reckon you can get the sled down with this bottom man. Give it a go. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make it through Krasl. It was different. You're so much higher. You can see a lot more. All the steers are delayed. And then I made it through Krasl. And then the next corner I crashed off the end. And it
Wow.
hurt. Yeah, it hurts so much crashing on a double sled because you got so much extra weight on you, right? You got
Yeah.
so your body weight and then someone else and a sled pushing you into the ice. It's not fun.
Wow. Which it seems like it's one of the more closer sports between athletes, but it's also a case of it's also that weird, like it just looks absolutely insane that at some point in history somebody's like, luge is great,
Yeah.
but let's add another person. Well, why not? Let's give it a crack. Who cares how it looks? People are gonna laugh at us, sure, but this is awesome. Like it's such an odd sport.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's strange from an outsider's perspective, but we have so much respect for those guys. And being able to luge in a team environment, that's pretty cool. I mean, all the single sliders, we only got ourselves to rely on, right? We haven't got anyone to talk to about how the run went, and I mean, we can talk to each other, but those guys, they form a pretty cool bond.
Yeah,
And
they'll have to. You're that
yeah,
close.
right. I mean, they're lying on top of each other. Let's be honest here. But they, yeah. I mean, it's once you get past it, it's two men lying on top of each other. It's actually a pretty cool sport, believe it or
Well,
not.
in all seriousness, this might sound like I'm trying to take the piss, but I'm not. How do you decide who's the top and bottom? Like, is it a weight thing? Like, is it like how do you decide?
No, it's a weight and tall thing. So the taller,
Right.
bigger person lays on top, and the bottom man is you want them as small as possible. So the top. So you want the bottom man smaller, so the top man feels like he's the only one on the sled, kind of.
Wow. Okay.
You think
Interesting.
about it like that, and then also aerodynamically, it's better to have the bottom person a lot smaller as well. So
Which is that the only sport that you can think of where the bigger person is on top, basically? Because it's usually the other way around, right? Like in sort of
yeah,
weighted
yeah, no,
sports
you're
like
right.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess another reason the bigger person is on top is because in their start, right, the top man is sitting on a stool that's quite a lot higher from the ice, so they need longer arms
Yeah.
as well. So
It's
yeah, I mean,
fascinating,
there's a lot
Alex.
to it.
It's
It is, it
yeah,
is.
it really is. And one of the more fascinating aspects too, and this is why we need to get more Aussie, losers out there, is the team event that we saw in Pyeongchang, the relay. Now that was epic. That was absolutely incredible to watch. One of the most exciting events I've ever seen at an Olympic Games. I mean, have you had a chance to experience that where you can do like a test run with, say, your Latvian teammates or your American teammates when you're doing that? Because I can imagine that's one thing that you'd be kind of sad to miss out on because that just looks fun.
Yes, it is. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I pulled a lot of the reaction start is awesome. Like starting to when the gates open. That's a whole other aspect to the sport that I think needs to be put into just a normal race. To be honest, it's so awesome the reaction, and then yeah. I mean, I have got to do it before when I was a junior and they were first introducing the team relay. they were throwing together teams from everywhere. So I had a relay team with an Austrian, a Swiss, and myself. At like a junior World Cup event. So that was pretty sweet. But then with the Latvian team, we trained a lot in the fall for team relay. So I have it's a bunch of fun, and I am jealous of those guys for getting to participate. I need I need two other men and a woman to put it together.
There you go. We've got to get those recruiting shoes on, and we'll get them happening. Milan, we
Yeah.
want to kind of see it pointing out. After Sochi, you created history for Australia. First ever luge medal at a junior World Cup event. You did that in Canada, gold, if you don't mind. What was that experience like, kind of topping a podium? Again, only a few years after you've picked up this sport.
Yeah, that was a special day. It's special few weeks. Whistler is a awesome track. It's super fast. It's not too technical, but for some reason, I was sliding the best I have ever. I think it's because it was my first event after the Olympics. So all the nerves, everything was off my shoulders, right? I was just relaxed and very flowy all the way. Every single training run I was nailing. It was incredible. To be in that mindset sliding in sport is just phenomenal. And I had it for 2 weeks straight. And then the race come around, and I didn't really feel nervous. I was just focused and calm, and it all came together. I won by 1,000th of a second after 2 runs. So
Pretty nice feeling. And also on that podium, you beat current two-time world champion, Mr. Roman Repolov. How does it sort of look back? You see the photos of you on the podium next to him now after all the success. And I mean, he's probably got a bit more pressure on his shoulders going into Beijing, I can imagine, but must be a pretty good feeling.
yeah, it's pretty cool to look back on that photo. It's Roman Repolov and I think it was Jonas Mueller, the Austrian athlete. I think he's sprint world champion or something in the moment. So two top guns, but it's unfortunate that I come from a smaller country, right? Because once we went to the senior circuit, those guys got given awesome sleds. So, and I was stuck trying to put a sled together, and they just got to take off in their careers, and I'm catching up now. I feel so it's a shame the technical aspect is such a huge part of the sport, but you got to love it and hate it at the same time.
You've still got that photo though, Alex. Like imagine, like I'm sure there's somebody back in like a junior swimming carnival in the US who's beaten Michael Phelps, right? Like there's a photo, and you're always going to show that photo. At that time, Michael Phelps only got third in that race. I got the gold. I beat Michael Phelps.
Yeah, I guess so. It's funny because that race, I was after the first run, I was second, and after the second run, individually, I was second. So 2 second place runs win a race if you're consistent enough. And to come down to 1,000th of a second too after 2 runs combined is pretty special.
It's the beauty of the sport, though. It's just those thousandths of a second that can obviously can make a difference. The experience in Pyeongchang, did you go into that different mindset because you'd been to an Olympics now, you'd been on the circuit a little bit longer, you'd obviously had some success in the Junior World Cup, and does that change the mindset going into a second Olympics than it did going into a first?
Uh, yes and no. I felt slightly more prepared. I was on a faster sled, but it wasn't really sliding the way I wanted to, and to be honest, I was quite burnt out by that Olympics. I had a huge season beforehand with so many ups and downs, and I was having troubles, dealing with the being away from home and the mental side of things. So I wasn't really in the greatest state of mind in those games, but I learnt a lot from it. Obviously that Olympics, I look back now and realize that I need to pace myself through the season. It's a long season, especially for me being away from home for 7 months. It'll be before the Olympics. I've been away since June. Olympics are in February. So just learning to pace yourself is the lesson I took away from those games, to be honest.
Is it something that you can reflect now, 28th, which is the highest a Australian male has ever finished at an Olympic Games. I mean, can you reflect now and be proud of that achievement, or is it a case of, well, I'm still not done yet. I've still got more Olympics in me, so I can better that moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's the best result a Australian has done at the Olympics for luge, but after the first run, I was in 15th. So, and that run was good, and so that showed potential. I think with three other runs, like my first one, I would have been around 10th or 15th, like 10 to 15th place, and that's I mean that's a consistency side of the sport, and that's just being able to deal with the pressure and not burn out. I was under so much stress going into those last runs over, built up throughout the last, 3 seasons. So, yeah, I mean, that's something I'm really focusing on going into the next games.
Which, given the delays that have had through COVID, is that something where obviously it's going to hinder you to a point, but is it a weird way that you got a bonus amount of rest that you can go into a fresh season that you're about to kind of face and take that differently as if you had been just in a regular sort of yearly cycle that you would be in a general Olympic cycle?
100%. I think that time off for COVID for me was extremely beneficial. I learned how to for that whole last year. I didn't slide at all, right? So I went 16 months without being on a sled. And in luge, it's known that you need to do it or you lose it, So throughout those months that I should have been sliding, I kept every track fresh in my mind. I had an alarm set on my phone, reminding myself to do mind runs. I do 4 or 5 mind runs at a time, and then the next day I do it again for the entire week, and then the next week I'd do a different track. So I'd keep every track fresh in my mind, and also I learned how to stay calm and focused. I spent a lot of time like meditating, you could say, and just getting to know my emotions a bit better. And I think that's a huge part of the sport too. The mental thing in luge is massive, and I think it's massive in any sport. Just being able to stay focused and calm without being so amped up is very important. But it was interesting coming back to sliding again. Right, it was my first run was in Russia, and I was nervous. I was extremely nervous, but I was calm too. I wasn't so G'd up, and I knew what I had to do. I've stood on that track before, and as soon as I pulled off the handles, did my 3 paddles, laid down from lady start, it just come back to me in a split second, which was really, really cool. Having that all just flow back in straight away, and suddenly it was. I hate to say it, but it was like riding a bike. I just jumped back on it, and away we went. And I think not only did I get back to sliding right away, I think I also improved in the sense that I've weeded out a lot of the bad habits that I had before. Just little things like, steering more, like feeling your hands and pointing your toes is my cue for sliding now. So lead with your toes and feel your hands, where before I was kind of like leading with my shoulders and feeling my knees more. So just like weeding out the bad habits I had before over the whole year of drilling in those mind runs was a good cue too.
And when you have that break and you go back into it and you're sort of saying about that sort of passion that gets ignited there, is it something that, heading into what will be, say, your 3rd Olympics, 26 years of age to have 3 Olympics, pretty good sort of, track record there. I mean, is this something that you just want to keep on just pushing because you love it so much? I mean, I believe Albert Demchenko back in Sochi was 40 when he's winning like a silver medal. So, I mean, you've still got a good 14 years till you get there. So, you could be a 6-time Olympian if you're kind of that, or is it something that you just take it each cycle as it comes and sort of review it at the end of every sort of cycle like that?
Yeah, I've pretty much decided that I'm going to continue for the next cycle after this. So I just feel like I have a lot more in me now that, you know, I am. I've decided to, I've got to an age now where I've decided to really take this seriously. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well, and I'm, going to put everything I can into it. So I'm going to go another 4 years after this because I feel like I'll be ready these Olympics, but not 100% because of that year off. There's a few sled things that I just don't have time to figure out now that I need to sort out before the next Olympics. But it's a experience based sport, right? We have to learn each track. So, and you need runs on each track. So the longer you have to learn each track and really ingrain those lines into your head, the better you'll be.
It's a very select club, a four-time Olympic club, four-time Winter Olympic club for Australians, let alone that aspect. So that's incredible. And to think that, again, you sort of, it wasn't exactly something that growing up, you're like, I'm going to be an Olympian. It sort of, it came about, which, I mean, it's a great story behind that.
Yeah, thank you.
Which is the track in Milan, is that one that's given that is being built, or like is it something they upgrade, or is it going to be completely new? I mean, do you sort of know what that process will be for 2026?
I have no idea. I'm just focusing on these games first, and we'll take it, take it from there afterwards.
Because it's like what, less than 20 in the world or something like that tracks, or like there's like a very select number of these sort of tracks. So it's sort of interesting.
I heard a rumor that they're not going to build any new tracks after these games, or maybe the next games, because
Right.
it's financially doesn't make sense to keep building new tracks at every new nation. Is just insane, the money they pour into these tracks, especially for a lot of tracks that don't get used again, like Korea. We haven't been back to Korea since the Olympics, and
Hmm.
that's really sad. But I feel like China's unfortunately going to. That's sort of what's going to happen as well here, in a lot of sense. It's such a European based sport, and without having three tracks to go between in Asia, it's not really financially, doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's a shame that Nagano closed down in Japan, because then you have a circuit here in Asia that we could have slid on, Beijing, Pyeongchang, and Nagano. But I mean, never say never. It'd be nice to go back to Korea. I mean, I've kind of blanked that track out of my head. I've just forgotten everything about it because I wasn't really happy with my result. But it'd be good to go back and get some your redemption.
Well, I'm just thinking Brisbane 2032 again. Like, maybe we can poet somebody out there to build, the Southern Hemisphere's first luge track, right? Like we're overdue. Come on. It would be
Can't
handy.
argue with that.
Exactly, it'd be handy. Now, Alex, before we wrap up with a series of sort of questions we just like to close out with, one thing I wanted to touch on, I believe I brought this up with Hannah. I remember back in Sochi, getting to remember you as an athlete because you had the fro going on. Like you've got a bit of the fro sort of. It looks like it's sort of coming back. Like is this something that like helps or hinders when it comes to luge? Like does it help in that helmet or bring back the fro, Alex?
I know Hannah keeps trying to get me to bring back the fro. It comes back every now and then. I mean, I just cut my hair and then let it grow for 6 months and then cut my hair again. So, but I got a haircut recently, so by the Olympics it might be okay. So we'll
Hey,
see if the
just
flow is growing.
do it. Like that's get the kids involved. They can see it. Like I mean, we're seeing the return of like the dirty mullet, right? So like you could kind of, we saw that during the Olympics with Cam Smith, right, and like sort of the mullet and just everything. Like so, like I'm thinking that we can do this. Like get kids involved in luge by with the mullet or the fro. Like it's gonna
Yeah.
work.
Okay, I can't argue with that. Let's do it.
Okay,
I'll
it's all
grow it
about
out. I'll grow it out to the games. Promise.
good. All right. All about the kids, getting them in the sport, all right? We want you in doubles and mixed relays come Milan. So, we've got to start getting them involved, Alex, all right? So, hey,
Alrighty.
I'll take it up if that's what it takes, like you twist my arm, all right? There you go. Now, as I said, we wrap up our interviews with a set of fun sort of questions. These are based on a Team Canada questionnaire they give their athletes ahead of Pyeongchang they did and Rio. And I'm always excited when I can actually use an athlete from the same sport. And I found a questionnaire they gave to Tristan Walker. Now, are you friends with Tristan? Do you associate with him much? I mean, how do you think he's going to answer some of these questions?
I got a pretty good idea of how he'd answer a lot of these. We get along well. We've been on a holiday together to Thailand, so we're good mates. Yeah.
All right then. Well, I feel I need to let you know his answers along the way here. So there you go. And as always, again, completely optional here, Alex, but there is a drawing element if you want to do some homework. There's draw a picture of yourself, draw a picture of one of your teammates. I'm seeing here the picture he's drawn of him and his teammate. He's very interesting. It's a stick figure luge doubles pair, but hey, cool. He tried. So I'll start off with your favorite ever Olympic moment is.
Oh man, favorite ever Olympic moment.
You can answer your own, like if you want to say like any of your own, like that is, you know.
Chris Mazda winning the silver medal at the last games. That was pretty cool. I mean, that whole podium at the last Olympics was pretty special to watch from the sideline. So I'm going to say that.
Stick to your sport. Yeah. I like that. Tristan said here, Donovan Bailey winning 100 metres back in, what was that, Atlanta. So very Canadian answer. Of course he's going to say that. If I could have any superpower, it would be?
Teleportation. Because I could just go home for a second and then come back to luge, every now and then.
Simple. Easy. Tristan's gone with the ability to fly. So
yeah, same. Depends how fast you can fly.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, this is a pretty... he's given a very standard answer for this question, a very Winter Olympic athlete answer. Your favourite sports movie is?
Sports movie? Okay, I'm going to... Cool Runnings. There you go.
Yes, there you go. He's answered Cool Runnings, so gone with that one. We're getting a few more Eddie the Eagles now though, so kind of...
Okay, that is a good one. I have to rewatch that. It's been a while.
I mean, that basically is just Cool Runnings, but with ski jumping. But I mean, still, it's a great movie. It's got Hugh Jackman in it. Who's going to complain about that, right? So, and Christopher Walken's in that movie, so why not? Your favourite pump-up song is?
Pump-up song? At the moment, it's Alice Ivy, Get Me a Drink.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good song. Yeah. He's gone for Back for More by Five Finger Death Punch. So
okay, there you go.
Yeah. Not sure if this was on like the Thailand playlist or something along those lines. The most recent TV show that you binge watched is?
Does Squid Game count as a TV show?
Yeah.
All right, Squid Game. It's the last one I binged.
Done. He's went with Game of Thrones. So, standard. Your least favourite foods. And I'll just say, Tristan's literally answered, I like everything.
Oh, man, you know what? I'm actually with him there. We travel so much and we're kind of forced to eat everything. So I've just grown to eat everything.
Go for it. Was there anything in Thailand that you were kind of like, yeah, give me that. Bring out your dead. I'll eat it. Come on.
I would wrap my lips around anything in Thailand, food-wise.
Go for it. Go to town. If you weren't an athlete, what would you be?
Oh, that's a great question. I have no idea. Probably an electrician or a tradie of some sorts, most likely.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
You're a keen fisherman, I believe. Anything sort of you get out in the water or kind of do that as a profession?
I don't know if I do it as a profession. It might take away from the fun of it, The
fun of it.
If you're forced to do it every day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I see where you're going there. Tristan's gone with fighter pilot, so he likes to fly clearly. So he's kind of go there.
Yeah.
Now, I love this answer. The fact that you've mentioned you've been on a holiday with him to this place. So he's answered Thailand for this question. Favorite vacation spot is?
Oh, vacation spot. I love the East the New South Wales coastline. I,
Okay.
yeah, surfing and the New South Wales coastline is a
Beautiful.
pretty awesome place.
It's
So
like Byron Bay,
also,
kind of sort of around that area,
yeah,
or?
yeah, Byron to Newcastle is
Yep.
pretty sweet. Yeah,
Beautiful. Good answer. Coming from a Queenslander too, pumping the tires
I
of New South
know,
Wales. Not common.
I know.
So just, there you go. It can happen. What is something that people usually describe you as?
Describe me as?
Hmm.
um, I don't know. They say the running joke is I'm a loser. So loser, loser.
Hey,
So
I like that. Luge puns. Didn't realize they
yeah.
existed. I like it. Okay, I'm going to test you on this one. What would you describe Tristan as? And let's see if it matches up with his answer.
Oh, man, he's energetic, I would say. He's got lots of energy. He bounces off the walls. He's big personality.
Okay,
What's he got?
he's answered fast. So,
But yeah, okay, there you go. That adds
yep.
up. Yeah.
Yep. I do like here that Team Canada have included a photo of his Instagram, and it's got sort of a picture of him with his arms crossed looking all tough and menacing. But I kind of like this rooster sort of crest hairstyle he's got going with a bit of the shaved blend look. So, like just apparently weirdly into hairstyles during this interview today, Alex. I don't know what's going on with me. Um, if you could be an Olympian in any other sport besides your own, what would it be?
Surfing.
Surfing. Nice. There you go. That works. He's gone for hockey. Very Canadian. So,
There you go. All right.
Um, I always struggle with this question just because it's one of these ones that I feel you either have an answer straight away or you don't have an answer at all. Your favorite song lyrics are.
Oh. All right. So it's a Disclosure song,
Okay.
and I don't remember the song name, but it goes where your energy where your tension goes, your energy flows. And that's kind of a mantra I've been running on lately. So
I like that. That works very
yeah,
well. Can you
yeah, I
like
like that.
stencil your sled? Like, is there any customization you could like include that on like your sled?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I might have to get the marker out. Maybe put a
Yeah.
little message there somewhere.
Go for it. Do you name your sled at all, Alex? Or you sort of go that path at all?
Oh, I used to, but no, not anymore. It's part of me.
Okay.
Doesn't need a
All
name.
right.
Yeah.
Doesn't need that, right? I put that out there because I've tried to get half the Australian bobsled team to call their sleds Ben, so I can say they've been to the Olympics. So again, if you feel that need, I won't say no. Tristan's got very Canadian. He's very proud to be Canadian. Tristan. He's just gone with True North, Strong and Free from the national anthem. So why not? Okay. Your guilty pleasure is.
Guilty pleasure. Ooh. I mean, I eat a lot of chocolate. I love chocolate, but I don't feel guilty about it. Uh,
As you shouldn't.
as I should. Yeah, I
Coaches
don't know.
might feel a bit bad if you don't fit into the suit after a big chocolate binge, but
Hey, the biggest stone rolls fastest down the hill, so you got to pack on the
bugger
pounds.
it, eat more chocolate then. You got an Olympics to go to. You could just be going and just chowing down a couple of family blocks. What are you doing? I'm training for the Olympics. I've got to eat all the chocolate. So, it kind of works. Yeah, Tristan's gone for a DQ Blizzard. They're pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take those. All right. Alex, before we let you go, people want to follow your journey in the lead up to Beijing and beyond, social media, anywhere that people can sort of stay up to date with your progress?
Yeah, pretty much only Instagram. I do post to Facebook, but I just share everything off Instagram to Facebook. And my Instagram account is at Pink Shorts Hula.
Pink Shorts Hula. All right. Now, where does that come from?
Oh, so before the last Olympics, at the training camp in Korea, the team. So I'm good friends with the Canadian team, and I was beating them all at the start, all the Canadian athletes, and I was really, stirring the athletes and the coaches up a bit while doing this. And during the Canadian team meeting, the coach, he's a German guy. He goes, and I quote, this pink Shorts Hula Australian is come on guys, he's beating you at the starts, and and I was told about this from the Canadian teammate, and I was like, oh, you know what? That's a pretty sweet name. So
Lock it in. Wow.
I'll lock it
That's
in.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Geez, the best names come from those moments, don't they? So,
Yeah.
love that. Fantastic. Alex, mate, it's been so much fun chatting to you today, learning about Luge, your career and everything. Fingers crossed for everything going towards Beijing to Milan to 2030, 2034, 2038. Keep on going. The sky's the limit. But we really appreciate your time, and we look forward to racing down that track again very shortly in Beijing.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ben. I had a ball.